Pain is your power. That statement might sound extreme to most people, even ridiculous to some. But to someone who has truly experienced the depths of human suffering, someone like David Goggins, it is a universal truth. We've been conditioned to avoid pain, to seek comfort, to retreat from adversity. But what society rarely teaches us is that pain is not the enemy. It's the source of transformation. It's the fire that tempers steel. Pain reveals who you are beneath the surface when there's nothing left but your raw will to survive, to rise, and to dominate. Pain is what breaks you down, but it's also what builds you back stronger if you let it. Goggins didn't become who he is because he avoided pain. He became who he is because he walked straight into it and refused to come out the same. As a kid, he faced abuse, poverty, racism, and learning disabilities. He wasn't given the tools most people rely on to succeed. Instead, he was given trauma, brokenness, and fear. But it was through enduring those things, through embracing the weight of it all and not turning away, that he discovered a power most people never tap into. In America, especially, we're sold a dream that everything should be easy. Fast food, fast money, instant gratification. We avoid discomfort like it's the plague. But all that does is make us weaker. We numb our minds with screens, our bodies with junk food, and our souls with lies. We avoid the gym because it hurts. We avoid hard conversations because they make us feel something. We run from the very things that are designed to make us better. Pain is not the enemy. Avoidance is. Goggins flipped that script. He didn't just endure pain. He sought it. He trained his mind and body to find power in the moments that broke most people. While others slept, he ran. While others cried, he endured. While others complained, he found purpose in the suffering. Because here's the truth: pain is honest. It doesn't lie. It doesn't sugarcoat. It tells you exactly who you are. Are you someone who breaks under pressure or someone who adapts and grows? Pain answers that question every single time. When you run, your legs burn. That's pain. But that burn is where the muscle builds. When you study for hours, your mind aches. That's pain. But that's also where growth happens. When you face heartbreak, rejection, humiliation, that's pain. But that's where you find your core, your grit, your resilience. Goggins learned that the deeper the pain, the greater the lesson. Every mile he ran on broken feet, every push up with a torn ligament, every breath he took while drowning in self-doubt was a reminder pain is power. Because it sharpens your edge, it refines you, it carves out the weak parts and exposes the beast underneath. The problem is most people never get to that point. They quit too early. They feel the discomfort and back off. They hit resistance and fold. But what if, just what if, that pain you're feeling is the signal that you're close to breaking through? What if the suffering isn't there to punish you, but to prepare you for something greater? That's what Goggins believes. That pain is not random. It's the gym for your soul. The heavier it gets, the stronger you become. Pain is the only thing that doesn't care about your status, your background, your excuses. It doesn't care what kind of car you drive or how many followers you have. Pain levels the playing field. That's why it's so powerful. Because in pain, there are no lies. There's just truth. The truth of what you're made of. And in a world full of fakes, that truth is rare. That's why most people hide from it. Because it forces them to face the parts of themselves they're not proud of. But if you're willing to stand in the fire, to feel every ounce of that burn, you'll come out stronger than you ever thought possible. David Goggins uses pain like most people use motivation. He doesn't wait for inspiration to act. He uses the memories of being overweight, of being laughed at, of being told he wasn't good enough. All of it. As fuel, he goes into his cookie jar, as he calls it, and pulls out every painful moment, every time he overcame the impossible, and he reminds himself who he is. Not because he had it easy, but because he didn't. Not because he avoided pain, but because he faced it and he refused to let it break him. In a country obsessed with quick fixes and comfort, that mindset is revolutionary. Pain is power not because it feels good, but because it teaches you what nothing else can. Pain reveals discipline. Pain reveals perseverance. Pain reveals purpose. Most importantly, pain reveals who you truly are when the mask comes off, when no one is watching, and when your back is against the wall. That's where the real transformation happens. That's where greatness is born. That's where David Goggins lives. And that's where you find your power. We live in a world that avoids suffering at all costs. Every advertisement, every convenience, every modern comfort is designed to protect us from it. But the truth is, growth does not come from comfort. Growth is born from suffering. And not just the kind that happens to you, the kind you choose, the kind you seek out on purpose, like David Goggins. He's not just a man who endured pain. He's a man who chased suffering because He understood something most people never will. True transformation lies on the other side of pain you choose to walk through. In America, we've been sold a vision of success that looks like ease. The big house, the six-figure job, the early retirement, the beach vacation, all without the sweat, without the grind, without the agony. But real power doesn't come from ease. You don't build a strong mind by sleeping in. You don't build a strong body by skipping the gym when it hurts. You don't build a strong spirit by running from discomfort. Suffering is the sharpening stone. It strips away who you think you are and shows you who you really are. David Goggins understands this at a level most people can't imagine. He's run hundreds of miles on stress fractures. He's pushed through Navy SEAL Hell Week 3 times. He's broken through physical and mental limits that doctors, trainers, and scientists told him were impossible. And he did it by suffering, intentionally. Not because he loved the pain, but because he understood that the pain was the path. He used suffering as a weapon. Every early morning when his body screamed to stay in bed, every moment his mind told him to quit, he leaned into it. That suffering became his gym. That suffering became his discipline. And this isn't just about physical suffering. This is about choosing the harder path in all areas of life, facing your fears head on, having the difficult conversations, owning your flaws, cutting off excuses, putting in the work even when there's no applause, no reward, no guarantee. Most people want results without the suffering. They want the title without the training. But Goggins knew better. He knew that choosing suffering on purpose, separates the average from the elite. It builds calloused on the mind. And those calloused are what carry you through when everything else fails. In a country that praises comfort, that glorifies shortcuts, the Goggins mindset is a wake-up call. We scroll through highlight reels and wonder why we feel empty. We chase dopamine but avoid discipline. We complain about our problems but refuse to suffer through the solutions. You want to lose weight, you'll suffer. You want to become mentally tough, you'll suffer. You want to change your life, you'll suffer. But that suffering is exactly where the magic happens. It's where the weak version of you dies and the unstoppable version is born. There's a kind of suffering that the gym teaches you. That last rep when your muscles are on fire. That run when your lungs burn and your legs want to quit. That moment when your mind says stop and you keep going. Goggins lives in that moment. He chases it because he knows that's where strength is built. That's where transformation begins. And the same applies to everything in life. The mental reps, the emotional endurance, the spiritual battles, they all require suffering. But most people quit too early. They back off the moment it gets hard. They believe the lie that discomfort means they're on the wrong path. But the opposite is true. Discomfort is the compass. If it's hard, it means you're growing. Goggins doesn't wait for suffering to find him. He finds it. He uses it as fuel. Every run in the freezing cold, every workout when he's exhausted, every painful reminder of his past. He embraces it because he knows that when you suffer voluntarily, when you choose the difficult path, you take control. You stop being a victim of life and become the author of your future. And this isn't about being reckless or masochistic. It's about discipline. It's about ownership. It's about going beyond what you thought was possible. When Goggins says, get comfortable being uncomfortable, he's not giving you a catchphrase. He's giving you a blueprint. The gym is a metaphor. The battlefield is your mind. The suffering is your test. Will you quit when it burns? Or will you keep pushing? Most people don't want to suffer because suffering means sacrifice. It means giving up what's easy. It means facing your flaws. It means failing. But every single breakthrough in history, in fitness, in business, in character, was built on the back of suffering. We celebrate greatness, but we forget the grind behind it. We admire the finished product, but ignore the suffering in the process. Goggins doesn't forget. He doesn't skip the suffering. He runs toward it because he knows that suffering is not just part of the process. It is the process. It's the daily test that makes you stronger, harder, smarter, more focused. And the longer you sit in it, the more unshakable you become. Most people want results without paying the price. But Goggins pays the price every single day, in sweat, in pain, in silence. And through that suffering, he's found a power no one can take from him. Accountability is everything. It's the foundation upon which real change is built. In today's world, it's easier than ever to point the finger at someone else. People blame their parents, their childhood, their boss, the economy, society, even genetics. They create narratives where everything is someone else's fault. And in doing so, they give up all their power. But David Goggins flipped that completely. He looked in the mirror and said, "This is all on me. No one is coming to save me. No one owes me anything. If I want change, I have to be brutally honest with myself and then do the work." In America, We live in a culture of excuses. There's a victim mindset that's come mainstream. If you fail, it's because the system is rigged. If you're overweight, it's because fast food is everywhere. If you're broke, it's because the cost of living is too high. While there's truth in external circumstances being hard, none of that justifies surrendering control over your life. Goggins didn't grow up with privilege. He was abused, bullied, neglected, and ignored. But he didn't let that define him. He used it. He looked at his situation with no filters, no self-pity, and said, I'm the problem, and I'm the solution. And accountability means owning everything. Not just your success, but your failure. Not just your wins, but your flaws. It means staring your weaknesses in the face and refusing to make excuses. That kind of radical self-reflection is uncomfortable. It strips away your ego. It exposes all the ways you've been lying to yourself. Most people don't want that. They want to feel good, not be good. But accountability isn't about feelings. It's about truth. And truth is often ugly before it's beautiful. David Goggins created what he called the accountability mirror. He put sticky notes all over his mirror, each one confronting a weakness he needed to fix. Fat, insecure, lazy, illiterate. He didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't soften the language. Because the truth isn't supposed to make you feel comfortable. It's supposed to wake you up. That mirror didn't reflect who he wanted to be. It showed him exactly who he was and who he needed to become. That's accountability at its rawest form. There's a difference between blame and responsibility. You might not be to blame for what happened to you, the abuse, the trauma, the injustice, but you are responsible for how you respond. That's the hard pill to swallow, because once you accept that truth, there's no one left to blame. There's no safety net. It's just you and the life you've built or failed to build. That's the mindset Goggins adopted. He didn't just want to survive. He wanted to take control. That meant owning every aspect of his life, his health, his mind, his work ethic, his decisions, even his emotions. Most people are passive in their own story. They wait for motivation to strike. They wait for someone to believe in them. They wait for circumstances to change. But Goggins didn't wait. He got up every day and created discipline out of accountability. He didn't need a coach to yell at him. He didn't need a cheerleader. He was his own standard. He held himself to a level of discipline most people wouldn't dare attempt, not because it was easy, but because he refused to live in denial. That's what accountability does. It kills denial. It forces you to deal with reality, no matter how uncomfortable that reality is. In the United States, we love the underdog story, but we forget that behind every comeback is a level of personal responsibility that most people avoid. It's not glamorous. It's not flashy. It's day in, day out self-examination and effort. It's choosing to take the harder road, not because someone's watching, but because you refuse to be average. Goggins wasn't born with greatness. He created it step by painful step, by looking in the mirror and saying, you are the reason you're here, and you are the only one who can change it. This isn't about shame. It's about ownership. Shame is paralyzing, but accountability is liberating. When you take full responsibility for your life, you gain power. You stop depending on the world to fix you. You stop waiting for opportunity and start creating it. You stop talking and start doing. Accountability turns excuses into action. It silences the voice in your head that says, I can't, and replaces it with, I will. But that only happens when you're willing to be brutally honest with yourself. When you stop running from the mirror. David Goggins used that mirror to track progress, to destroy lies, and to ignite change. It was a daily confrontation with reality. No filters, no pity, just truth. And that's what most people need. Not more motivation, not more handouts. They need truth. Because when you look at your life and admit that it's a direct reflection of your choices, your habits, your standards, that's when the real work begins. That's when change becomes inevitable. Not because someone told you to change, but because you finally decided to hold yourself accountable to the standard of the person you want to become. Mindset is your weapon. It's the most powerful tool you have, more powerful than your body, your education, your money, or your background. Everything starts and ends with your mind. You can have the strongest body in the world, but if your mind is weak, you will fall apart the moment adversity shows up. David Goggins understood that early in life. He didn't always have control over his environment, but he realized he could control how he responded to it. He trained his mind like a soldier trains for war. Every day, every hour, every situation. It was a battle, and his mind was the front line. In America, we place so much value on appearances, the body, the brand, the image, but the real strength is invisible. It's inside your head. Goggins wasn't the fastest, smartest, or most gifted, but he had something few people do: mental dominance. He knew how to control his thoughts, how to silence the negative voices, and how to keep going when everything told him to stop. That kind of strength doesn't come from reading a book or watching a video. It comes from suffering, from discipline, from choosing to show up every single day even when it sucks, even when no one's watching, even when you feel like quitting. Most people let their minds control them. They let emotions dictate their decisions. They feel tired, so they don't work out. They feel anxious, so they procrastinate. They feel discouraged, so they quit. That's a weak mindset, and it leads to a weak life. Goggins flipped that. He trained himself to control his emotions, not the other way around. He taught himself how to suffer with purpose. When he didn't want to run, he ran harder. When he wanted to rest, he worked more. He built a relationship with pain and learned to thrive inside it. That's not insanity. That's mental mastery. Reprogramming your mind is not a one-time event. It's a daily decision. You have to wake up every morning and choose to be stronger than your excuses. That takes work. That takes relentless self-discipline. Goggins created rituals that kept him accountable. Whether it was waking up at 4 a.m., running in the freezing cold, or facing the mirror and calling himself out on his lies, he did it because he knew the enemy wasn't outside. It was inside. The voice that says, "You've done enough. You can't take any more. You'll never make it." That voice is the real opponent. In the US, we're taught to chase motivation. We scroll social media looking for a spark, a quote, a video to hype us up. But Goggins didn't build his legacy on motivation. He built it on mindset. Motivation fades. It disappears the moment things get hard. But a strong mindset, that stays. It shows up when you're tired, when you're afraid, when you're alone. It's not hype. It's discipline. It's not excitement. It's consistency. Goggins knew that, and he trained his brain to be a weapon, sharp, unforgiving, unstoppable. The average person has no idea what they're capable of because they've never taken control of their thoughts. They've never examined the stories they tell themselves. I'm not good enough. I always fail. People like me don't succeed. These are mental chains. Goggins broke those chains by replacing them with a new story. I am the hardest worker. I do the things no one else wants to do. I don't quit. And he didn't just say those things. He proved them to himself over and over again through action. That's how mindset becomes real. Not through affirmations, through repetition, through action in the face of resistance. Goggins created mental calluses the same way a mechanic builds muscle memory. Over time, the things that used to break him no longer had power. He became mentally bulletproof not because life got easier, but because he got stronger. And that strength bled into every area of his life. It wasn't just about running or SEAL training. It was about how he approached everything: relationships, goals, setbacks, failures. He applied the same mindset to every challenge, and it gave him control in a world full of chaos. In this country, where distractions are endless and comfort is sold as the ultimate goal, having a strong mindset is revolutionary. It means choosing to do the hard thing when the easy way is right there. It means choosing focus over distraction, discipline over pleasure, long-term growth over short-term comfort. That's what separates the average from the extraordinary. Goggins wasn't born different. He became different by refusing to let his mind stay soft. He built mental armor one painful rep at a time. Every time he laced up his shoes for a run he didn't want to take, every time he opened a book he didn't feel like reading, every time he held himself accountable when it would have been easier to lie. That's when the transformation happened, not in a moment of glory, but in the quiet, painful, invisible grind of mastering his own mind. "Can't hurt me" is not just a phrase, it's a mentality. It's a declaration that no matter what life throws at you, it won't break you. That no matter how deep the pain, how loud the doubt, or how many times you've been knocked down, you will not fold. David Goggins didn't just say those words. He lived them. He burned them into his identity. He made them the foundation of how he faced every obstacle, every failure, every ounce of suffering that tried to destroy him. In a world that teaches people to protect themselves, to avoid pain, to play it safe, Goggins built an unbreakable mindset that stared hardship in the face and said, "You can't hurt me." Growing up in a broken home, dealing with racism, abuse, obesity, and learning disabilities, Goggins could have taken the easy path, the victim mindset. He had every excuse, every reason to settle, to stay angry, to stay small. But instead, he chose something almost no one chooses: to become mentally invincible. That choice didn't come from comfort. It came from pain, deep soul-crushing pain that most people run from. But instead of running, Goggins leaned into it. He studied it. He used it. And that's when "Can't Hurt Me" was born. Not as a slogan, but as a personal war cry that turned every weakness into a weapon. In America, people are obsessed with avoiding pain. They do everything they can to stay comfortable. They medicate their stress, scroll away their anxiety, eat away their insecurities. They want to be numb, not tough. But Goggins understood that numbness is not strength. True strength is feeling every ounce of fear, every drop of pain, and still pushing forward. When he was running 100-mile races with shattered feet, when he was going through Navy SEAL Hell Week multiple times, when he was staring down the demons of his past, he didn't shut off the pain. He embraced it. He used it as a mirror to prove how far he could go without breaking. Can't hurt me means your pain doesn't define you. Your circumstances don't define you. Your past doesn't define you. Only your response does. Most people crumble when life gets hard. They spiral when things don't go their way. One setback, one rejection, one insult, and they're done. But when you live by the can't hurt me mentality, nothing can touch you. Not because it doesn't hurt, but because you've trained yourself to rise through it. You've built so much callous on your mind that pain becomes a signal to dig deeper, not give up. Goggins didn't build that mindset in one day. It came from years of brutal honesty and intentional suffering. He forced himself to confront the weakest parts of who he was. Every run in the cold, every pull-up with raw hands, every lonely night studying with dyslexia. It was all part of the same mission, to build a mind that couldn't be broken by anything or anyone. While the rest of the world waited for life to get easier, Goggins got harder. He didn't ask for fewer problems. He asked for more strength. That's what "can't hurt me" really means. It's not that nothing hurts. It's that nothing has the power to control you unless you let it. This mentality is so rare because it requires you to take full responsibility for your life. You can't blame anyone. You can't hide behind excuses. You can't pretend to be something you're not. The "can't hurt me" mindset requires radical transparency with yourself. It forces you to look in the mirror and say, no matter what happens today, I'm not backing down. That kind of a mindset doesn't come from books or seminars. It comes from doing hard things over and over again, especially when you don't feel like it. In a culture where weakness is celebrated as identity, where quitting is packaged as self-care, where everyone is encouraged to speak their pain but never conquer it, Goggins is a walking contradiction. He doesn't just talk about his pain. He dominates it. He doesn't just share his story. He rewrites it every single day through action. That's why people resonate with him. Because deep down, everyone wants to feel that powerful. Everyone wants to be the kind of person who can stare chaos in the face and smile. But very few are willing to do what it takes to become that. "Can't hurt me" is not a shield that protects you from struggle. It's armor that helps you walk through it untouched. It's the realization that life will never stop testing you. That pain will always be around the corner, but you don't have to be a slave to it. You can rise above it. You can endure it. You can weaponize it. Every time you push through what you thought would break you, you add another layer of mental toughness. You become less reactive, less emotional, less vulnerable to the opinions and judgments of the world. That's why the "can't hurt me" mindset isn't just for athletes or soldiers. It's for anyone who's sick of being controlled by fear. It's for the person waking up at 5 a.m. to chase a dream that no one believes in. It's for the single mother who keeps grinding despite the exhaustion. It's for the student fighting through learning struggles, the addict battling for sobriety, the entrepreneur who keeps showing up after failure. It's a mindset for anyone who chooses to fight, not because they want to suffer, but because they refuse to lose to anything that tries to keep them small. That's the essence of David Goggins' philosophy. Pain is not your enemy. Weakness is not permanent. And your mind, when trained with discipline, truth, and relentless self-accountability, becomes your greatest weapon. "Can't hurt me" isn't about being immune to struggle. It's about rising in the face of it, refusing to break, and declaring to the world and to yourself, "I own this. I control this. I will not be defeated." So whatever you're facing right now, doubt, failure, fear, fatigue, remember it can't hurt you unless you let it. Stay hard.